Hello and welcome to Model Kit Stuff, and today's first impressions video is focusing on this Airfix 1:400 scale Scharnhorst or Gneisenau, depending on which you want to build. Let's have a look. So this is the 2005 release of a 1973 Hella kit. An Airfix release one or two Hella kits. You can usually tell that the Hella just by the scale of 1:400. There will be one or two other giveaways as well. But yeah, basically this kit has been released a number of times by Hella, most recently around about 2012-ish. The kit never really changed since 1973. The only thing that changes is the box and the price. So you can pick this particular version up, the Airfix version, for somewhere between 40 to 80 pounds on places like eBay at the moment. So I'd be questioning paying more than 60. I think in 2012, the 2012 version will probably cost you around 70 pounds. But fish around, look around and get the cheapest version you can find, as long as it's complete, because there is no difference in the kits whatsoever. So when we look at the box, we've got some nice artwork of German ships in convoy with being buzzed by various aircraft. I think that is a swordfish. Couldn't necessarily tell you what the others are. The box doesn't actually tell us that much. The Airfix kit number is 08204. They only released it once. So there's only this version under the Airfix badge, and comes from a time when Airfix, Humbrol and Hella were all sort of part of one company. So on the sides and on the end there is not much to tell you. It just repeats what's on the front box, and then on this one side here we've got our paints listed. We've got some dimensions, so 579 millimeters, so just over half a meter long, and 75 millimeters tall. So you know, reasonable size. And then we've got the imagery when painted. So basically, grey on the top, red on the bottom. Right, let's talk about the ship itself before we have a look at what we get in the box. So the kit says that you can build either the Gneisenau or the Scharnhorst. Well, that is a little bit incorrect, because although they were sisters and they were fairly close sisters, there are differences. So the positions of the scuttles, for example, on the ship's hull are different. We know this from looking at the trumpeter kit that came out last year in 1:200 scale, and they've used the Gneisenau hull for the Scharnhorst, and as a result it is wrong. So we know that there's going to be issues with this kit depending on which one you build, and possibly issues regardless of which one you build, yet to be determined. When I come to build it, I'm going to build this version, and the Gneisenau was quite an interesting ship. It tended to operate with its sister ship, the Scharnhorst, in reality, for well, at least for the start of the war. She was launched in 1936 off the top of my head, and I seem to remember she was around about 32,000 tons, maybe a bit over, but originally was designed at 18,000 tons. So they went from 18,000 to 31 tons as a redesign, and still had her launched within 12 months. So that's pretty epic if you ask me. So Gneisenau saw operations in Norway, and was involved in the sinking of HMS Glorious, the aircraft carrier, and she was plagued through all of her life by the RAF. The RAF were constantly trying to bomb her out of existence, and she bobbed around in Brest for a while, repeatedly getting bomb damage, and then famously herself and Scharnhorst did that daylight daring dash up the channel to get themselves back to Brest, where, guess what, they got bombed again. And that was pretty much the end of her career. The guns got removed and used as shore batteries. They were going to do some significant rework of her, and then Hitler ordered that to be stopped, and she was sunk in March of 1945 as a blockade ship in Poland. She was eventually broken up for scrap in the early 1950s. So there is no trumpet fanfare introduction to what you're about to build. There is simply straight into a little bit of history and the specifications, and then when we flip over the page we go down to the Airfix building key, which would have been familiar at the time, slightly different to today, but anyone who's been building Airfix kits for many years will recognize these symbols. And then when we flip over we get to step 1, which is putting the two hull halves together, and we're already putting the anchor chain in and the jack staff, which absolutely I wouldn't be doing. We have an anchor at the back, 2 stands and the nameplate. So interesting. We've got little supports that go in, and we've also got a little leveling tab for the bottom. So quite well thought through for a 2-halved hull, certainly for the period of the early 70s. Step 2, we're adding the propellers and the rudders. So the familiar German arrangement of 3 shaft lines and 2 rudders. I'm not quite sure what that is that's going in there. And then we go on to sub-assemblies then. We've got anti-aircraft guns, light anti-aircraft guns, search lamps, rangefinders, ship's aircraft, ship's boats, which gets us to step 12. You will have to forgive these instructions. I've already gone through them and marked them up, ready for doing some work on this. Then we've got main guns, secondary guns. Then we've got another even smaller single gun, more ship's boats. So it's a bit eclectic, the mix. And then torpedo tubes. And the one thing that we can see is that they are shouting out to us the paints as we go through this. So I'm not quite sure what it means by A33 and B34. I'm guessing 33 was still black, unless it means black lower hull, and 34 I'm guessing was a grey upper hull. Not sure. Anyway, that's what we're building, those sub-assemblies. So there's, in terms of detail, there's no binoculars or observation equipment. We do have some light machine guns, and they look disturbingly like plastic ladders, but I would expect no less from 1973. The masts do have separate yard arms, which is interesting. Means we don't have to remove them before we put thinner ones on. And then we've got a rangefinder. So yeah, there's, the basics is all there. So it'll be interesting to see what we can do with that. Then we've got what is effectively the lower section of the lower deck with the armoured range finding post that was also common on German ships of that period. Lower superstructure, 2 cranes mounted on that deck, and then we're into building the funnel. 2 options, one Scharnhorst and one Gneisenau, so that's interesting. The main difference appearing to be the mast, but what's interesting is on the Scharnhorst they have a blanking plate that you glue on. I'm sure that wouldn't be right, a great big plate, but we'll have to look at our references. Then in step 23 we're building what looks like the hangar to me, with the catapult on top. We've got another small mast assembly there, various little bits and pieces going on it. Looks quite busy, doesn't it, in the instructions at least. Then we've got, is that another catapult? Oh, we've got options. We've got, sorry, I'd missed that. We've got options. So this, again, the 2 ships being slightly different. So different masts going in depending on what you're doing. So a large mast there for Scharnhorst because it wasn't put on the funnel. I'm with you. Okay. So there they have found the differences between the 2 ships and put them on. Obviously, they won't have necessarily done that with the hull. You've not got different hull options. Then we are on step 24, and we've got what will be largely a steel deck going into there, roofing off that first level of lower superstructure. Yeah, so I'm guessing the funnel is mounted onto there, so that'll all be moulded in one piece. That'll be interesting. Flip her over, and step 25 looks like boat chocks going onto some form of superstructure. The large main deck cranes. Then we are building up the superstructure, adding that sub-assembly that we made up earlier, and then that is being plonked onto a deck, which is then being put into the hull. And at that point we're putting the deck fittings on, the breakwater. We seem to have the anchor chain going on again. Right, okay, it's been thread through the deck. Okay, so we've already threaded it through part of the ship, and we're now threading it through into the deck as well. Looks like there's a little bit of drilling to be done in places. And then we have the paint instructions. So we've got, what, 28 steps to complete the build. Pleasing to see, although it's limited, some form of rigging instruction. And we've got instructions for the flag and the decals, which includes the eagle for the stern. And then we've got our paint colours, all 3 of them, for painting the main ship. And that is pretty much it. Oh, we have chain lengths, so I didn't notice those in the instructions, but no, they're not in the instructions, but they give you the lengths there. So 30 millimeters, 80 and 50. And then there is a small instruction there on how to cut to size the plastic railings to make them the right height for going around the ship, which clearly we wouldn't be using in this day and age. And on the very last page we have the same again for the Gneisenau, but a bigger list of paints. So there is some differences, particularly the superstructure colour there, which is would be a darker grey than the upper hull grey. So that is correct. So that's nice to see. The decals make me smile because they take me back to being a kid when the swastika was swapped out for Balkan Cross. We've got flag for the front staff there, and then we've got the main red flag for the stern. We've got the bow eagle, which is wholly inaccurate, and we've got the 2 heraldic shields for the bow, which would have been on there running up to the war, but then were either removed or painted out as they went into war. But certainly it's nice to show those on there if you're going to model a pre-war version. It looks quite nice. Right, plastic, and at some point I clearly started this, I don't remember, but yep, the 2 hull halves have been brought together, and what we can see is actually the fit is not too bad. There's a fair amount of sink. We've got sink, you can probably just see that in the light, there and there. There is recessed, quite nice, deeply recessed scuttles, and not much at all in the way of distortion on the bow, which is always a moulding challenge. I think it's why more recent Tamiya kits, for example, do that as a separate strip to try and get around that. There's a lot of unevenness here at the bow. It's very lumpy bumpy, and then we've got this hole for the anchor, but that actually should have a sort of anchor shaped recess. So there's some inaccuracies. We've got the boot line marked out, so we can paint that easily, and then these bilge keels here are a massive solid triangle of plastic, which some people would leave. It's hollow on the inside of the hull, so that does create a problem as to whether you want to take them off, fill it, and put thinner plastic card ones on, which I'd be tempted to do. There's quite a bit of work to do on the hull. At the bow we have lots of sink again, huge amounts of sink, and they look quite oversized to me. They look way too big. Yeah, that they just don't look right to me at all. So yeah, interesting. Then we've got the steel deck area, which is sort of molded into that, and there should be sort of a loop that goes over that to hold the anchor in place, so that won't be there. Yeah, we're gonna have to fill all that and level it off, and yeah, there's quite a lot of work on there. It does say Hella on the inside of the hull, just to prove I wasn't making up the lineage of the kit. When we look at the deck, as we would expect, is raised corking lines. We've got open ladders, stairwells in the deck, so that gives us an opportunity to model them open and maybe show a hatch up, or we could just close them off if we prefer. We have some skylights. Looks like there has been some work started on the deck to remove the corking lines. We do have aftermarket for this, so I'll be showing you that in a minute. Barbettes are moulded in, lots and lots of skylights. They're just featureless boxes, but they're all there. Then we've got the mounting points for the secondary armament, a couple of boat chocks, and then again at the back we've got more deck fittings, so ammunition lockers and the like. Not a very busy deck actually. Let's just see what that looks like in terms of fit. Well, that's not bad at all, is it? Just got to trim about 0.5 millimetre off the front there to get that to pop in, but yeah, there's not much in the way of filling required there. A little bit around the stern, but yeah, not bad. not bad. What you'd expect for the age. Okay, sprue 4, we have some parts missing. I think that the display stands were here, so we'll review these at the same time. Plastic is the usual Hella plastic. It's quite hard. Again, it's making me smile. We're in the days where numbers weren't necessarily in a straight line. Yeah, takes me back to my childhood when I was building these sort of things all the time. Always had one of these sort of ship kits on the go. We've got the main cranes there, totally featureless, basic shape only. Then we've got some smaller davits, bit heavy on the moulding, but certainly look the part, they look right. Then we've got the smaller cranes there. Again, featureless, but we've got all the correct shape. Then we've got rangefinder with exaggerated lenses, but it at least shows what it's supposed to be. I think, yeah, that's supposed to be the radar, so it's just a slab. Half of it has a waffle pattern on and half of it is smooth, so I don't know why that is. We'd have to check our references. Got slightly damaged floats, but there's our aircraft floats and our aircraft with massive sinkhole in it. But it's got all the basics. We can paint that up and it'll look all right. There is no panel lines as such other than on the wing flaps, so there is some detail on there at least, and we've got the raised crosses to make it easier to paint them in. And then we've got some boat chocks. The ship's boats themselves are not bad. Actually, no ejector pin marks on the inside of them, so that's nice because you always end up cleaning up ship's boats, takes forever. And then that's your catapult, so just a big chunk of plastic, but it'll give you the impression. It will certainly give you the impression. And then our boat stands, a little bit more attractive than the Airfix girder version, but I grew up with the Airfix girder version and I quite like them. But yeah, they do a job. They need a bit of sanding to take the sink out, but you know, certainly seen worse. Sprue 5 mainly has our masts on, and actually because the plastic's so hard, these are quite robust little masks and should clean up really quite well. They're on the heavy side. They're thinned down with the stepping method, so we'd have to have a look at what's right in terms of adding platforms to make that look right. But yeah, they're not too bad. We've got various fittings there for them, some better than others, but if you thin down the seams a little bit, we can add some finesse. And then we've got the smaller secondary one there. This is our structure for the hangar, and we've got a door there and a little ladder that's quite finely done actually, the ladder. Couple of well, that's part of the command tower, and then we've got I think that's a platform for searchlight, and then we've got another platform there. And obviously these side walls are a little bit thick, but give you a view of what it was looking like. And then some boat chocks. All pretty standard stuff for early 1970s. What I do like is that I would like to see more display plates like that, because what we've got is the name and nothing else. So that's really nice and easy to paint up. The writing is in the sort of writing style of the period, so it just looks right. There's no maker's marks on it, there's no scale on it, so that's just nice, as it should be. Sprue 3 is all about the armament, and we've got the main gun turrets there, the triple gun turrets, which do does actually have some rivet detail on, and ladders. It's missing ventilators at the back, but actually not too bad. The gun barrels are basic, but actually they're not full of flash. They've not got heavy seams on. Bit of seam, but it's not heavy, so they're not too bad either. The other gun turrets have no feature on them at all, really. Pretty basic, but not less than what you'd expect. And some of the gun barrels at a smaller scale are, well, as you can see, they leave something to be desired. That one's actually bent. So really we want to try and swap all these out with aftermarket turned metal barrels if we can. Anti-aircraft platforms, and then you know what, the small machine guns are as good as any you'd see these days, even in a new kit. Yeah, but it's all crisp, there's no flash, it's almost like a new kit. Not bad. It's going to be easy to put it together, just lacks a bit of detail by modern standards. Okay, sprue 2. This has our second deck piece on, which is totally smooth, denoting a steel deck, although I'm sure some of it would have been wood as well. We have the breakwater, which is as nicely done as any these days in plastic. We have the funnel cap, which is totally open, so leaves us some opportunity to put some wire mesh or something over the top. We've got various plastic boxes, which are supposed to be superstructure bits, I'm not quite sure. That's our deck there that's around the base of the command tower with the little wings on it. We've got some ejector pin marks to deal with on some of these decks, but nothing major. And they have thinned the deck side on. I don't know if you can pick that up. So it gives you a sense of proportion while adding strength by thickening it up later on. The funnel sides have ladders on, and they also have the little hang runs going round, so that's quite nice. And then we've got some supports, just need the ejector pin cleaning off, and then they look quite nice too. So actually not too bad. We've got scuffles marked up, we've got doors marked up, so we can be drilling out, and we've got positions for aftermarket etch should we choose to. It needs it really, it's a bit basic. Then the last of the plastic is sprue 1. We've got the propellers, and actually they are really thin. They've got a nice twist on them. Propellers are quite nice. We've got the shaft line bulges, one of which has come off, but obviously there'll be some blending needed once we've got those on. The anchors also quite nicely done. Not quite sure what those are. More boat chocks, plastic ladders. I've certainly seen worse plastic ladders, but we won't be using those. The two rudders, nicely done actually. Then we've got what looks like the capstans there, 3 capstans. The lower superstructure, again with the scuttles all sort of marked up. Could be drilled out, could be painted in. Then we've got search lamps which have separate bases, so that's quite nice. They're not hollow, but they're nice and crisp. Certainly all the basic shapes are nice and right and look good. We just need to add detail to it. So a case in point is this, the armoured shelter. You know, you'd want rivet detail on the top of that now, because there were quite prominent fastenings along the top of that, and You've not got the vision slits marked out or anything like that, but you've got the basic shape with the vision ports put on the top. So yeah, all in all, for 1973, not a bad effort. And then right at the end, I found this in the box, which is another set of decals. So again, we've got the same flags, the same stern eagle, and different heraldic shields, and the boot line as a decal, which is interesting. These aren't aftermarket, these will have come in the kit as well. Right, aftermarket, let's start with the deck. So I have an Artworks deck. So it comes in this nice clear packet, and it has 2 sheets of laminated wood deck, self-adhesive, and the laser, these were my deck of preference for a long time because the lasering is nicely done. They're not like the Pontos ones where the laser burn collects at the edges. The Pontos ones are a bit rubbishy, really. I quite like these ones. They actually put a little bit of stain on the wood as well, so for me they look the part, and I've never had any real issues with fit, so I quite like these decks. So you can see it's got cutouts for everything, including the possibly oversized hose pipe openings there. But yeah, they look nice. It's got joggled edges, which is what you'd expect for that period. And then we have some of the other decks in wood as well. So that big sheet of plastic that looked like steel deck that possibly shouldn't all be, we probably have some deck for it. So let's have a look at what it says. When we look at our instructions, you can see we've got stern section 1 piece, bow section 2 pieces, plus the anchor chain bits. And then you can see this is that big plastic deck. You can see we've got wooden deck to go on there. It's nice that they didn't put the raised deck lines on there, because it means that I don't have to go in and sand off all that caulking. I can just slap this deck on. So right from the start, you can see, if you look at that, just adding the deck elevates the ship right from the off. And unlike its 1700 ships, or even the 1300 more recent ship kits, the deck overlay really does add something to this without taking too much away, because the deck fittings are slightly oversized and so on and so forth. You can get away with it much more than you can other ship scales. The one thing about the Artwork decks is they are not the thinnest decks that you can buy, but they do fit well and they do look good on. So nice little addition that should really help make this kit pop. So when it comes to photo etch, I have 4 sets that can be used for this kit. I have a dedicated full etch set from White Ensign Models. Their etch is always very, very good. If I can't get what I'm looking for from Atlantic Models, then White Ensign is usually my second port of call. And then quite often I like to add an Edward set to it as well, if possible. But because these are old kits, Edward have never done anything for these. So you're really stuck with White Ensign and possibly Tom's Model Works for these type of ship kits. And White Ensign, I love the etch that they do. I've also got portholes and doors, and then 2 different sets of cable reels, because they have different sizes. So I've got sort of large and medium to small, and in slightly different styles. So they may complement what's already included in the set, but yeah, these are sort of the stuff that I buy, so I've got them when I need them, and then you usually find that most of what you need is in the set, but occasionally you might find there's a door missing and stuff, so I like to have additionals, and these little sets don't cost so much. So let's quickly have a look at the instructions for these smaller sets. So when it comes to the cable reels, they all work pretty much the same. You fold the ends up, you put a little bit of plastic rod in, you've got a cable reel. And it does say what the different types are. So you can see there's numbers there, and it's telling you that you've got sweep cable reels, so 2 meter, 6 meter, 5 meter hose reel, 1.25 meter hawser reel, more hose reels, a rope reel, a cable reel, a cordage reel. So telling you what the different reels are, so you can do your research and make sure you get the right type on the right point on the deck. So that's really cool. They always did a great job of their research, White Ensign. So that deals with our cable reels, so we'll take them away. Then when it comes to doors, shows you a nice picture with lots of portholes and doors and bits and pieces. We have some extremely tiny parts. I mean, they look like 1/700 scale. They're so fine, those portholes, and they've all got lids and they've all got eyebrows. So there is no real instruction to these because it's just place them, but it does tell you a little bit about them, and basically says, you know, not to remove them till you need them and that sort of thing, so you don't lose them. But this is a photograph of Prince Eugen, and it just shows you how busy these ships really are when you get up close to them. So in the main set, you're getting all the railings that you need, which is great because it was plastic railings in the instructions, but I didn't actually see them in the kit, so I don't think we got them anyway. And then we've got things like replacement yard arms, replacement weaponry, which I can be a bit 50-50 with. I like the idea, but it ends up making the guns a bit two-dimensional, so sometimes I cut the bits off and use the surface detail to add a little bit, but then don't bother with the gun barrels, if that makes sense. We've got replacement cranes, which actually don't have much detail on them either, so that suggests that the kit parts aren't too far off. And we've got a beautiful funnel cap. It'd be nice to get some rod and put some correct diameter rod underneath those holes there. We've got the heraldic shields, and we've got platforms and various braces, some improved davits. We've got the correct spreaders, so yeah, all very nice. We've got lots of doors, floats, which I didn't see were included, new thwarts to go on top of the ship's boats, which will add some detail, and an accurate stern eagle, and then some of these nets that were a feature of German ships in some areas on the upper decks. So yeah, there's lots to be going at, more portholes as well, little hatches, and a new catapult seat for the aircraft, so that's nice. Let's have a quick look at the instructions. So you get some assembly instructions at the start, and then, as always with White Ensign models, you then get a picture of your fret of etch parts, and they're all numbered so that you can then reference them in your instructions. And as always, White Ensign instructions are very clear. They're a combination of instructional text, pictures including the kit parts and their photo etch, and they break them down into little sub-assemblies, and then you work out where to put them in your build sequence of your kit. So we've got radar arrays there, which is nice. They look quite complex. And another one there. So tells you what the different radars are. Late version or an alternative version, I guess. Then we've got the foretop fittings and rigging, which we just saw. It's quite a hefty piece of etch with various yard arm rigging hanging from it, which is really nice. We've got upgrading of the masts. We've got significant upgrading of the crane and how that looks. So it'll be interesting to see what that looks when it comes together, which includes our cables for moving it about, which are not on the model at all. So that's nice. Then when we flip it over, we've got a parts list. So this would have been the first page. I've got them slightly out of order, sorry. So you've got a parts list there for which cross-references the numbers on that picture. Building up the various guns, like I say, I don't like the barrels because it makes them a bit two-dimensional, so personal taste really. And another radar version. Then we've got specialist railing for around the hangar catwalks. We've got a whole new catapult and textured deck to go on that part, so that will add some nice detail. Searchlight platforms have been upgraded, which is nice. We've got a new prop for the aircraft and replacement struts for the floats, so that's good. Then we've got the funnel cap modification, which is nice. We've got bridge platforms which weren't included, so that's nice. Shows you where to put all the various bits around the edge of the upper deck. Those are those sort of mesh etch parts that we just saw, which fit in there. And even the railings have the correctly blanked off netting or whatever along them, so that's really good as well. We've got showing you where some of these supports go, cable reels, handrail fittings for various splinter shield tops, the smaller cranes being dealt with. So, and that completes it. So quite a lot of fittings there one way or another, but all really adding to the aesthetics of the kit. So the plastic kit shape is all there, and what this is doing is adding the detail. So lovely. So there we have it. Scharnhorst or Gneisenau, 1/400 scale, Hella kit in an Airfix box. What's my first impressions? You are going to struggle if you want to build one of these, because there is not many kits out bigger than 1/700 scale, which is why this kit commands such a price, I think, because there's lots of Scharnhorsts about, but not so much on Gneisenau's, and it's a bit of a shame. Anyhow, what we have here is a really nice solid base kit. The hull needs a lot of work. A hull needs a huge amount of work, but that's par for the course for its age. So not taking anything away from the kit by saying that, it's just a fact. We've got sink, we've got heavy seams, we've got bilge keels which look like massive struts of concrete, and then we've got to do the standard stuff like drilling out the scuttles and so on and so forth. So quite a bit to do to sort out the hull. Once you've got past that, I think the kit itself should build up fairly well. There's not too much cleanup to do, and by the time you've put a wood deck on it and put the various photo etch bits on it and painted it up, little bit of rigging, should look splendid. So yeah, not a bad little kit. What I would say is be careful how much you pay for it. Don't raise your piggy bank too much for the sakes of this, because I'm fairly sure that the likes of Trumpeter will bring something out in 1/350 scale, and most people will want to jump to that as soon as it comes out, rather than build one of these older kits that need so much work. So yeah, beautiful kit of a really interesting subject. I think they're quite pretty ships in their own right. So yeah, I'm looking forward to getting to this at some point. I hope that was interesting, useful if you've been looking at possibly buying one of these kits. Gives you an idea of what you get in there and what you need to get on top. I'm going to saw some barrels for this, I think, next job. Thanks for looking in. Take care, enjoy your modelling, and I will see you very soon.